Today I'm standing in front of the museum's AH-1E model. This is called a snake or a Huey Cobra to most people. So the Huey Cobra has an interesting history, and ours, I think, is representative of that very interesting history. Starting in 1965, the US Army was fielding quite a few of the H-1 helicopter, the standard Huey, the fat-bodied thing we are all familiar with from the movies. They were fielding that, and they realized early on that in an effort to give it an ability to carry a lot of extra weight, it was very lightly armored. In fact, most of them didn't have any armor at all. When you start taking a helicopter into combat, that becomes an issue very, very quick. So by 1966, the Army had already decided we really need something additional, something on top of the usual H-1. They could put weapons on an H-1. That's not the same thing as having a dedicated gunship. So when they put out the call and said, we want to change these, we want something that can defend itself and defend everybody else. It's not going to be a troop carrier, it's going to be a warfighter. What do you have? So a couple different companies came up with gunships, and Bell stepped forward fastest because they already had the H-1. So they modified it, and they modified it significantly. They took that basic helicopter, about 44 feet long, about 12 feet tall, and they decided the biggest problem is that nice big fat body. That's going to get shot full of holes in combat. So starting in 1965, they started looking into this project, and by 1967, they had a workable prototype. They'd actually flown it first in the year before. It was called the Model 209 back then, and to everybody else it became the Cobra. And boy, in Vietnam, if you talk to any Vietnam soldiers or veterans that fought there, these things really changed the whole war. They felt so much more capable once they had this in the arsenal. So let's talk about this. This is the Echo model, so that's about halfway through the production line. Of the 2,500, more or less, airframes that they built to this standard, they built half of them to the Cobra standard. That goes up to the, I think the F model. And then from the G forward, all the way to the W, all those are a two-engine model. That's a gigantic difference. The biggest problem in Vietnam is everybody was getting hit with a whole lot of ground fire. And if you only have one engine, we have a saying in the military, it's always better to lose an engine than to lose the engine. And in helicopters, you don't make it back to base. You don't glide back to base. You need one engine to get you home. So starting with the G model, they switched over to a twin engine, and the survivability leaps ahead. From then on, these aircraft have significantly fewer accidents. They're just an all-around much better, more mature airframe. So what can this airframe do? Well, it carries a lot of weapons. It starts off as about a 6,000-pound helicopter, a little bit more than that. But once you arm it up and put all the rockets, load the guns, things like that, the max gross weight goes up to 9,500 pounds. So about half of its weight it can carry in weapons. That's not bad for any warplane. It would fly right at 150 miles an hour. That's about 40 miles an hour faster than the helicopter I flew in. It shows what the design was really supposed to do. It was supposed to take the battle to the enemy. It carried a variety of weapons. Depending on which model you're looking at, there's a whole bunch of variety. It starts with a single multi-barrel machine gun back in the 60s. It quickly developed into a 20 millimeter rotating gun. Some of them carried 40 millimeter rapid fire grenade launchers. So that's just the gun, that's just the sharp pointy end of the airplane. It also can carry tow missiles, as our example does. It can carry many different things. This one carries 19 rockets in a pod on each side. Now, it always seems weird to me that you'd carry 19, but that's what fits into that specific shape. And interestingly, some of those rocket pods in Vietnam were painted as beer cans. So it wasn't uncommon to go to a fire base that has this type of helicopter, and one of those pods would be painted up as a Schlitz or Pabst Blue Ribbon. There's all different kinds of beer can rocket pods. So it could fly usually about 150 miles an hour, but in a dive, trying to get away, evading from something, you could drive these things up to 220 miles an hour. I'm not sure I'd want to ride in one at that speed, but apparently they were safe to fly that way. So it could fly to about 11,400 feet. I'm interested to know how they came to that number. It sounds like somebody hit a tree line somewhere at about 11,400 feet. Our helicopter, the H-2, could do just a little bit more than that. We were a twin-engine helicopter for most of our development, so we could get a little bit above that, but this wasn't going to be fighting any wars up at the tree line. The whole point of this was to get down into the weeds and engage the enemy. So the max ceiling isn't really that important for this. So these aircraft are flown by a variety of different countries. Even today, they're still in common use around the planet. These things are not old technology. They were an exceptionally capable aircraft when the US military was flying them. And starting in about 1993, we started farming these off to other countries when our Apaches started taking over the role that these things had used before. Now the Marines still use these. They use the AH-1W, and it's possible there's a couple other models that they use, but that's the standard Marine one. There's less than 200 of those. That's the most advanced version there is. There's a Z model out there, but very few of those. So that brings us to our museum's helicopter. Ours is an AH-1E. Like I said, that's halfway through the production line, so it's got some of the advanced features, but not all of them. It doesn't have a lot of the electronic whiz-bangs that came out in the 80s and 90s. This was built in 1977. It actually did fight in a war, Grenada, but it counts, it counts. It was in a war. And it served with the 7th up at Fort Ord. So this is a veteran. It spent a lot of time in the Army before we got it. Depending on which plaque you listen to, we either got it in 1992 or 1993. I remember it coming in 1999, so I believe it was at our other facility being reworked until that point. But in 1999, we had the big ceremony where the crane came. Back then we didn't have a roof over this area, so I was here when they lifted up our Cobra and gave it one last flight down through the ceiling. Now I know a somewhat secret story about one of these. During the Iran-Iraq War, there was a battle. There was a battle between jet fighters in the area of Basra. And after that battle, the survivors went to their home base. The other side didn't have any survivors. So when the guys who got back on the Iraqi side, they said, we were just blown out of the sky. There was just nothing left of our force. On the Iranian side, that was using our equipment at the time, they got back to base and said, we destroyed the entire enemy force. The command structures on both sides said, BS. That doesn't describe a battle. That couldn't have happened. 5 or 6 on one side, 5 or 6 on the other, and one entire force was shot down. So both teams, Iran and Iraq, sent helicopters to the battle area to count wrecks on the ground. They wanted to know which team is telling the truth here. What happened? Where's the airplanes? Who shot down who? So the Iranians sent a Cobra. On the Iraqi side, they sent a French Alouette and an early model Hind. Now this is the matchup everybody in the military always wanted. We wanted to see what a Cobra could do to a Hind. Well, these two opposing forces overseas decided to answer that story for us. So as the two groups circled over the marshland in Basra, counting skulls on the ground, the Iranians didn't see the Iraqis until they were behind them. So the Alouette came in and tried to fire. The guy in the Cobra just sees gunfire passing his nose. So he does what he was trained in the US. This is so wonderful. If you're flying along and you see rounds come down your left side, what do? You brake left. You brake into the rounds because the guy behind you can see he missed as well. His next step is he's going to adjust to the right. So if you're not there anymore, you get to live for a few more seconds. So in that circumstance, that Iranian AH-1 pilot yanked into the stream of fire. Sounds kind of sketchy, but In a split second, he's out of the line of fire, and the bullets that are chasing him are shooting way off behind him. He spins around and he's facing. These two helicopters are facing each other. It's the Alouette versus the AH-1. The AH-1 fires a burst of fire into this glass-nosed French observation helicopter, and we can move on to the second part of the story. He turned his fire to the helicopter beside him, and now the two reigning supreme gunships on the planet, the Hind, the Mi-24 Hind from the Soviet Union, and the AH-1 from America, face off face to face over a marsh in southern Iraq. They opened fire. And boy, did they open fire. These two helicopters were connected by ropes of fire and destruction for a few seconds. They just blasted each other, head to head from about a quarter of a mile away. As this is going on, there's witnesses on the ground. I read the report. People were looking up going, this is it. This is the fight we've all been looking for. And after a few seconds of this intense head-on fire, the Hind started to slowly lower toward the ground and eventually was wrapped in flame and crashed. The Cobra guy turned and flew home. Now he's still got to convince his superiors, oh, by the way, we did shoot down all those jets and I just shot down two helicopters. So that's the true story of one combat that one of these was in back in the 1980s. I wish I could give you some more details of that, but I really can't. But it's an example of why we needed this. The other team has functional gunships. It really helps to have one on your team, and that was an example where the Cobra showed what it was really built for.